We are going live, testing the voice, testing the camera. What's up, everybody? It's Tyler with Hooksets are free. It is about 10:30 p.m. on Saturday, March 26th. This is the third night in a row that I've hopped on here to go live. Um, I don't expect a lot of people to be in here. It is late night. This is, an hour, almost an hour and a half later than I would ordinarily go live. So we will see if anybody shows up in here in a couple of minutes. I've got something to say, something to do. Um, there's really not much there. So I'm going to give people a moment or two to get in here to join and see if they want to hang out while I do this. But I do have a reason that I'm on here, and you'll know in just a moment. So hope everybody's doing well. Um, This week has been pretty busy for me in terms of being on YouTube. I've had three separate unboxings on Monday, Thursday, and then last night on Friday. So pretty crazy. I don't think I've ever done four live streams in a single week. So as I said, I don't really expect anybody to show up in here, if anything, just because it's so late. Most people are probably checking to see if I'm going live between the hours of 8:30 and 9:30 or so. And so I guess this is a test for YouTube's notification system and to see if people are still awake on this Saturday night, given that it's 12:30 p.m. on the East Coast. So if nobody is in here in, say, the next 2 minutes or so, then I will just proceed with nobody in here. But if there are people in here, then awesome. We can go through with this and then also maybe continue the conversation for a little bit longer, depending on if people are interested. But this does not need to be a long live stream by any means. But I do feel the need to get on here and address this because I want to say a week ago when I went live and we were doing some shopping for Tackle Warehouse. I was kind of dogging on them for their shipping time, and that throughout COVID, it has been lackluster at best. That it has taken them borderline 2 weeks to get stuff out, and and I was pleasantly surprised after making an order just a week ago and then getting it a few days ago. It took 6 days for them to turn that around. Not only pack the order, but get it to me from California. And for them, that's been pretty good. So I got to give them credit for that. But last night, as I unboxed this package from Tackle Warehouse, I was kind of confused, right? At first, I was like, I could have sworn I spent 89 bucks on this order, and yet the invoice is showing $72. I don't know what happened. Maybe I was mistaken, and there were a couple things that I like canceled out of my cart last minute, and I was just wrong. But then as we got through the unboxing, I I kind of double checked as I was reviewing and telling you guys what I got in here. I realized that one item was indeed missing from that order, and the Tack Warehouse had not shipped me a crankbait that I ordered, and I was very adamant about picking up that lure in particular, and it was the Evergreen Flat Force, which is one of my favorite flat side crankbaits. Period. I recently picked up this color of it, maybe a month or two ago. This is like a flash Wakasagi color. And so this is one of my favorite flat side crankbaits. It is expensive, but is very, very good. And I've got it in a couple of colors, really just three colors. I've got it in this flashy shad pattern. I've got it in this more transparent crawfish color with a little bit of red on the belly. And then I've got it in this smallmouth bass color, which I do really like. Sorry for the lack of focus there. So you can see it says Moto Flat Force 4 on that thing. And yeah, I like this thing for its a tight wiggle. You can see that the profile of this thing is fairly narrow, but not overly so. So if I give you a couple of comparisons, for example, let's just go with some popular baits on the market. Here's the Rapala OG Slim in the 6. This is a balsa crankbait. You can see that it's got a tapered body, but is a little bit wider than the Flat Force is, especially toward the nose and toward and on the belly. If I show you one or two others to compare, here's the Chick Magnet from Strike King. This is a newer bait on the market, and you get kind of that same deal, little bit wider profile with the Chick Magnet. And then obviously once you step down to, you know, like a Berkeley Fritz side, you're going to get a narrower profile finally. This is one of the few super narrow flat-sided crankbaits on the market. One of the flattest flat sides, if you will. You know, the KVD 1.5 flat is a little bit fatter than the Flat Force is. And yeah, so I like the Flat Force for how thin and narrow it is. It's kind of like a true flat side in that it's got that tight wiggle to it, and it's got a circuit board lip on it. It is kind of a hybrid between a square bill and a round bill. It deflects really well, and I just really like the bait. And so I had seen a color of it that was in stock at Tackle Warehouse, and that's part of what motivated me to do that live shopping spree just a little over a week ago. And so I put that color in my cart like immediately, and I told everybody that's a non-negotiable part about this order. I got to get that bait, and then everything else is kind of on the table, and we'll play around a little bit. So that's what we did, and then that package came the other day. I opened it last night, and that bait wasn't there, and I was pissed. You know, last night I think I said that my ass was chapped about that like 5 times. Um, but here's the thing. I figured that it was an error on Tackle Warehouse's part. That what must have happened was that somebody kind of jumped me in line and probably paid for 2 day shipping, got their order packed quicker than me. And then that bait, which must have been the last one in stock, got put in their order. And by the time that my order got picked, that it was out of stock. And so it didn't show up in my package. And you know, I was out of luck. So I was disappointed about that for sure. You know, Matt was saying that maybe it was a miscount in inventory or something like that, which certainly could have been the case. But one thing that I did not think about, and I don't think anybody else was thinking about, is that Tackle Warehouse now has 2 separate warehouses. They've got their original one in San Obispo, California. And then I want to say during the beginning of the pandemic or something like that, they opened up a second location in like Alpharetta, Georgia, so that they can ship more quickly and service their East Coast customers that much quicker, but also just to house all of their inventory, I suppose. So in the last couple of orders that I've made, I've actually had 2 separate packages come, one from each warehouse. And I did not think about that last night at all until just not long ago. I noticed that there was a package sitting on my front door. So I got to say, I'm a little bit embarrassed. And I must say, I apologize to Tackle Warehouse. I didn't even want to tag them in this video. I didn't want to put their name in the title of this unboxing or in this live stream because I'm embarrassed. But here she is. This is the Evergreen Flat Force 4 in the Fire Craw color. So this was high on my list as kind of a bait that I really wanted to have for the pre-spawn this year. And after last night, I was thinking that I was not going to end up having this in my possession. So I was a little bit bummed out. But now my luck has changed. And check this puppy out. This thing is kind of an ideal pre-spawn bait right here for a couple reasons. One, it's a flat-sided crankbait, so it's going to have that tight wiggle, which is great in cold water especially. But two, it has that primo red and that fire orange color that has become oh so popular in certain baits, like, say, the Jackhammer Chatterbait. So, the Firecraw Jackhammer Chatterbait was nearly impossible to get your hands on a couple of years ago. I had two of them in my possession at the time when they were going for $50 a pop on eBay, and they retail for $16. So at this point, I've got, a half a dozen of them or so, and I still have two of them unopened in the packages. I do really believe in the color, although I've talked about it before that I think that the Heights Hawk Craw color is arguably better, more well-rounded than the Firecraw itself. But Firecraw has become such a popular color pattern in that Jackhammer Chatterbait that it has carried over into a lot of other baits, including crankbaits, which, traditionally red is a pretty common and popular color, especially in the pre-spawn, but not as much in a lot of other baits. And so, what's up, Matt? Yeah, I did go real late, but that's because I just noticed that this package was actually sitting on my front porch and that I was sorely mistaken last night after dogging on Tackle Warehouse and being in such a bad mood about it. This bait is actually here. Came in the mail today. You can't see all of its glory, all of the red flake in the paint job. It's not one to show in this light, but you can obviously see it on the back there. And so, yeah, I'm pretty pumped to have this color. I like it better than I do this guy in the Spro Little John 50. But very excited to add this to my box of Evergreen Flat Force 4s. And yeah, sorry to Tackle Warehouse for being an animal last night and losing my cool. Uh, you're not going to lose my business or anything like that over something silly. Um, even if it was what I thought it was, but this is not that. And so, yeah, check out the difference in the orange belly colors. I don't know if you can tell, but this Flat Force 4, the orange is a bit brighter than it is on the Spro Little John. Of course, it probably doesn't show up all that well here, but the orange stands out quite a bit better. And so I'm excited about both of these baits, but I think that red flake and this brighter orange color, both of these baits are going to be awesome in, say, a month from now. And I'm going to use them quite a bit. But the advantage of the Little John 50 is that it's going to cast a little bit better, despite being a little bit smaller of a bait. I'm not sure if you were able to see that, but it is a shorter bait. The Flat Force 4 is more of like a traditional 2.5-inch bait, but because it's a flat-sided bait and has a fixed weight system, this thing weighs more like 3/8 of an ounce. Will cast okay, but is more prone to, say, catching in the wind, whereas the Little John has an internal weight transfer system with a soft tungsten ball and is going to cast better. So I will certainly use both baits, and I'm excited about it. So Daniel T in here, what's up, man? How you doing? Yeah, Matt. Looks pretty sweet to me too. you know, and in my hands right now, I can tell that this orange is brighter than this one. Um, but regardless, I'm excited to have it. I act like a dummy. I acted like a dummy last night, being so salty. But the reality was, this came from the Georgia location, and everything else that I opened last night came from California. So that is just something that we did not consider when we were kind of thinking of what must have gone wrong in them not sending me that bait. So because I saw it on my front porch, just like, I don't know, 45 minutes ago, when I turned on the lights, I realized that that it was sitting there and that that's what had happened, and I goofed up. So yeah, I feel bad, and that's why I did not label this as a tackle warehouse unboxing. But yeah, you can see that this came from, I don't want to show my address. Alpharetta, Georgia. So yeah, you know, I should have thought of that because the last couple of packages that I've ordered from Tackle Warehouse have been that way, where they've been kind of split, where I get one thing from California and one thing from Alpharetta, Georgia, at that new warehouse. So such is life. And you know, I apologize to Tackle Warehouse, but other than that, I got that bait and I'm pumped about it. So it's going right in the box. And that is really the only main reason that I got on here tonight, was to be able to show you guys that real quick. Of course, I could have saved it for next time I go live, you know, next week or something like that. But I didn't know if anybody would hop on here or not. Um, but how are you guys doing tonight? Are you guys sitting in bed right now? Are you still up? Do you want to hang out for a little bit, or should we just call it good at this little, you know, less than 20-minute live stream and get out of here and enjoy the rest of our weekend? I don't really care either way. I'd be happy to hang out. So you guys tell me, because literally for the first 10 minutes of this live stream, there was nobody in here. And then Matt showed up as I was showing that bait. And yeah, I totally understand. It's late night. I did not go on at a normal time, and nobody expected that. So all good. Matt says, I'm just sitting here, man. Nothing to do. LOL. Don't plan on doing anything tomorrow. I hear you. Well, did you go fishing today or no? You know, I'm just looking around at what's sitting on my table right now, thinking of theoretically things to talk about. And you know, I was looking at some stuff on Six Senses website the other day, considering making another purchase sometime in the near future from them. And I realized that they did end up releasing a smaller size of their swank. So we've talked about the uh, the hybrid hunter versus the swank in a couple of instances, and I've told you guys that I much prefer the hybrid hunter junior over the full size. Um, you know, here's one in the package. This is the full size, and it's a massive bait. You know, I have these in like their own dedicated boxes, so I don't know where all the hybrid hunters are sitting right now, but take a look at this guy in comparison to this guy. I mean, you get a significantly larger bait with the full size hybrid hunter than you do with the hybrid hunter junior. And the full size is like a 3/4 ounce bait, maybe even more. It's 1 ounce. This thing is a large crankbait, 3.5 inches and 1 ounce. So it would need to be thrown on more of like a medium heavy, moderate rod. Whereas right away, I came to really like the Hybrid Hunter Junior, which is more of a traditional 2.5 to 3 inch bait, but a half of an ounce. And so I do throw this bait as kind of my go-to, unless say maybe I'm fishing at night and slow fishing this thing. I might go with the bigger bait just because it's going to displace more water. But in most situations, I'm going to fish the Hybrid Hunter Junior, and I felt like that was something that was lacking from 6 Cents. Is that really they only had the Swank 77, and let's see here. So this is about the same size as the standard Hybrid Hunter. It's a big bait. I think it's a 3/4 ounce bait. So this color here, you can see some of the internals of this bait. Obnoxiously loud. We've got a rattling ball that moves side to side up front, and then we've also got one that moves side to side in the middle, and then some smaller BBs up in this top portion to give you a little bit of a range of noise. But this is a big bait, and that was one of the downsides that I saw or found about that bait. And so I'm excited about the fact that they're downsizing it and have released the Swank. What do they call it? The 66 or something like that. So that is a bait that I will probably end up getting at some point. But that's a little bit of a tangent. There's a few other baits from 6 Cents that I've kind of got my eye on and will probably pick up at some point. But Adam Odin is in the house. What's up, dude? How you doing tonight? Matt says, nah, kind of upset about that. The weather website said it was supposed to rain and be ugly out, but then it ended up being pretty nice and sunny. But I woke up late and it threw me off. Yeah, sometimes that happens. But oh well, you got some good sleep, right? Hopefully. Daniel, what were you talking about? What's better on a laptop? Were you on my phone or were you watching this on your phone? And now you're on your laptop? Matt says, Tyler, do you use the shallow shad wrap much, which sort of has an L bill, like the Hybrid Hunter? Love them for grass in the post spawn. So yes, the short answer is I do, but no, I more frequently throw the I don't even know what to call it. They make a shallower diving shad wrap that is not the L bill per se. I don't even know what to call it. I feel like a dummy right now, and I'm getting distracted by these flicker shads in the shallow. Okay, so I guess, yeah, I am thinking of the shallow shad wrap, right? This is like the walleye color. You get that L bill. Here's a demon shallow shad wrap in the, I think this is the size 5. It is my preferred size when it comes to shad wraps in general. I like the 5, but they're so hard to cast, you know? And so for me, it's obviously spinning rod territory and just becomes a little bit of a challenge and not something that I'm always in the mood for throwing. But yeah, I really have started to go down that road a little bit more and pick up the shallower versions of both the shad wrap and the flicker shad, just so that I can work these baits in a wider variety of bodies of water where I'm not necessarily always fishing deep. So yes, I do use the shallow shad wrap, but not all that frequently. It's such a small profile bait and because it is really exclusive to being thrown on a spinning rod, I don't use it as much as I would want to, or as you would think one should. So the answer is yes and no. Even the Shad Rap 7, I'm realizing here that I do have some of the shallow Shad Raps in the 7 as well. Even the 7 is what, like 3/16 of an ounce, and so still rather hard to be throwing on a bait caster. So um, yeah, I've got them, but I rarely throw them. So really good for fishing over submergent grass, like you said. At least I think that's what you said. Dude, Adam's on a weekend getaway with his wife for their anniversary. Get out of here, Adam. I appreciate your support and hanging out, but dude, get out of here. You're just relaxing with your wife. Well, say hey to her for us and get out of here. Go do your business, man. If you know what I mean. Pretty cool that you guys are you're out celebrating your anniversary. I'm hoping that I can steal away with my wife in 2 months. From tomorrow is our 10-year wedding anniversary. So yeah, with having a 1-year-old who's still breastfeeding and it's still being kind of the tail end of COVID times, our 1-year-old and our almost 4-year-old are not yet vaccinated, and it's complicated how we get away and travel and go do something like we ordinarily would for something like a 10-year anniversary. For our 5-year, uh, we went to uh, Sonoma in California. We did a whole like wine tasting weekend, made a big ordeal out of it. We visited like 10 different wineries, uh, joined a wine club, and just had a fantastic time getting away to celebrate our marriage. And I'm hoping that we will get to do the same in a couple of months from now, but it's looking like a little bit of a long shot. So, not exactly sure how we're going to navigate that, but congratulations. Happy anniversary to you and your wife. Um, Now, flip the switch, get a little romantic, and take care of business, homie. Daniel says, I'm so addicted. I have Matt give me a wake up call to see if Tyler streamed tonight. Did Matt actually hit you up and tell me that I was on or no? Matt says no Magnum shallow shad wraps. No, man, I don't have the Magnums. Adam says the balcony of my room is right on the Gulf. It's good. Just throw a rod from it. If I had saltwater gear, that would be sweet. Yeah, too bad you don't. All right, well, Adam's out of here. Yes, go take care of business, homie. Get her done because it's not always that easy. Matt says, never mind. It's not a shallow runner, but it's a giant version of the Shad Rap called the Super Shad Rap. Dude, I don't even really know that bait. I don't think. I've got a couple of like the Shad Raps in the 9, but those things run uh, like way too deep for me to be throwing them most of the time. So, dude, look at that. You and Matt are buddies. Matt hit up Daniel to hop on here tonight. So, guys, I appreciate that. But really, you don't need to be on here. We don't need to be on here um, per se. I literally just wanted to get on to show you guys that crankbait and put it out into the universe that I messed up. Tackle Warehouse deserves my apologies. So, yeah, I didn't really have anything else that I necessarily wanted to talk about tonight. So since it is 11 o'clock my time, and I do have work tomorrow, I'll dip out of here, um, and give you guys the rest of the night off. And yeah, well, next time I hop on, well, probably mid to late next week, then yeah, I'll try to come with a specific topic in mind, and we'll kind of blow this thing wide open. Hopefully, have a really active chat, if you will. So, Daniel says the weather is horrible here. I have no plans. I just slept really early today. What does that mean? You slept early today? You fell asleep early tonight? And Matt, I'm not saying I want to go. I mean, look, I'm a third of the way through my beer, so if there's anything in particular that you guys want to talk about, by all means, let me know. I mean, I don't really have anything prepared. I don't know what to talk about at the moment. So, um, we could go down whatever rabbit hole you want to for a little bit. Um, you tell me. Throw something at me, dude. Daniel says I went to sleep around 6, so I'm good to go now. Wow. How in the world do you fall asleep at 6, dude? That's ridiculous. I definitely got to do some reorganizing, and actually was just going to come down here and do that tonight. Uh, before I don't even know why I looked out my front door and I ended up seeing that package. It's almost like just something told me to, and voila, I saw it. So I felt the need to hop on here. But throw something at me in the next minute or I'm getting out of here. Is there something that you guys want to talk about? Is there something that you guys have been thinking about? Are there purchases you're considering making? Uh, lure wise or what? Because, technically I could talk about anything, but I don't want it to literally just be for the sake of me talking and extending this live stream for no real good reason. And I understand that technically there's 5 people in here right now, but it's just the two of you guys contributing right now. So if you're one of the other 5 people just watching, there are 5 thumbs up. So I appreciate you guys. But what's going on? Do you guys have any questions? Is there anything that you guys want to talk about? Matt says, "Did you see those fine art series 110 megabass jerk baits?" No, dude. Uh, fine art series. I don't know, but I'll definitely watch the hookup tackles video tomorrow. Do you know how much they're gonna run for? Because that's the thing is, a lot of the 110 baits that the hookup gets, I think they're pretty much regular price, but they tend to be so exclusive that it makes you feel like if you're going to pick those up, that maybe you should consider leaving them in the box and not fishing them and keep them as a collector's item. And you guys know that I'm not a collector by any means. The second that I get things, I open them, I put them in boxes. So I am not buying things with the hope or intent to maybe resell them down the road. I've never done that with anything. I mean, you guys saw with the tiny clash. The second I got it, I opened it. I don't even know where the packaging is. I've got that bait sitting upstairs. I look at it all the time, and I can't wait to fish it. So there is no bait like that. The depth slide swimmer, same thing. Everything that I own comes out of the package immediately. So I'm not sure about those, but I will definitely check. And you guys know that I pretty much have my bases covered when it comes to Vision 110 jerk baits, but if there's something that like really jumps out at me, would I make a purchase? Maybe. I don't know. I'll definitely check out that video. So thanks for the heads up, man. Daniel says I did order last night 3 of the OG Tinies and 3 packs of those Yum Scottsboro swim baits. Nice, dude. Yeah. Um, the OG Tiny is a bait that I fully intend to prioritize this year and for a lot of the season. You know, not just early season. Like, of course, I'm gonna throw this green gizzard shad a lot in a couple of my bodies of water that have gizzard shad. Although when I went to one of them the other day, it was really stained. So I could see myself throwing either the citrus shad or the mossy chartreuse root beer colors pretty quickly, or just jump straight to like the red craw. Although I think the water's a little cold for that. Now, that said, I did, as my daughter, well, my son and my daughter and I were leaving, I went to go feel the water because I didn't even bring a thermometer to be able to test the water temp. And not only did the water feel really cold, but I saw a large crawdad sitting like dirt shallow. And I caught it with my bare hands. It was lethargic. So, you know, I don't intend to throw craw patterns for a little bit, but I know that in a lot of bodies of water, bass are feeding on craws year round. So always got to have it in the back of the mind. And for when water is dirty, red also comes into play. It's not just a water temperature sort of thing, um, you know, relative to what the fish are doing and it being kind of prime pre spawn time. So, yeah, what sizes did you order in those Scottsboro swim baits? Because, dude, my first impressions of those things are really good. And I'm gonna throw the heck out of those. So, you know, right away I can think of a few applications where I'm going to utilize them, and I'm excited about it. Like for one, on a swim jig like this, you know, and this isn't even the ideal swim jig. You know, I converted this thing into a chatterbait with the queen tackle switchblade, but the colors on this thing were perfect for that black shad Kitech. Now this is just a Strike King um, tour grade swim jig. I historically have really liked that swim jig because of how aerodynamic it is and the fact that it's got a light weed guard and a hook. And so I really like fishing that thing super high in the water column. But um, yeah, regardless, I'm excited to have those swim baits, and I think throwing them on a swim jig and also just on like a round ball jig head, or even in a a a jig head that has more detail to it. So I suppose we could kind of rig one up right now if we want to, because this would make a good jig head for it. Nah, the color's not perfect. I don't know why I'm a stickler about that, but I kind of am. Where did I put that? I had a terminal tackle box like right here that I was digging through the other night looking for hooks, right? I don't know what I did with it. I suppose this could work. I don't even love this swim bait head, but it could work. Why not? While I'm in the mood for rigging one of these biatches up, might as well, you know? These are cheap swim baits too, right? Told you guys that. Daniel says, I got 2 packs of the 3.5 and 1 in the 4. Nice, dude. That's almost too big of a hook, but that'll work. Snip off a little bit of the head so that this thing will come up flush on there. Wow, see, it's a good sign how soft this thing is. That ain't too shabby. It definitely looks like too big of a hook for this bait. Too big. But, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. So, the gap is definitely a little massive, but I don't think it's going to impact the action negatively. It's just it's a big hook. So yeah, this 3.5 inch version is pretty sick. And I think it's gonna make a great finesse swim bait where it has a relatively decent profile, in that it's kind of tall, and so it doesn't feel as small as most 3-inch swim baits. For example, like a 3-inch spark shad feels like a really tiny swim bait, and you guys know that. So size wise, you can see just how much bigger, taller, wider this thing is. Wow, that looks like it's not straight right now. I swear I rigged this thing straight. It's deeper, it's longer, it's got more tail to it. So, yeah, 3.5 is obviously bigger than 3, but it almost steps up to a different level when it comes to finesse than a 3-inch bait. It feels closer to 4 than it does to 3. Matt says, I cut one of my OG slim lips and made it into almost a flat side square bill. Wanted to see if it does anything. Got to test it next time I go out. Interesting. So your OG slim, you turned into a square bill. That seems kind of tough to do, right? So you just cut a little bit off and then cut the front off. It's probably a really short bill, which makes me wonder how the action is going to be. But please do keep us posted, because if that's a modification worth making, then by all means, I'm open to it. And there's certain baits like the the KVD 1.5 flat, which I would certainly consider doing on because this has a long bill and this thing dives a little bit deeper than I want it to. So what if I trimmed off, a third of an inch off of this thing down to where this dimple is per se, and turn this into like a 5 or 6 foot square bill flat sided diver. You got the wheels turning in my head a little bit, Matt. I don't know that I would do that on an OG Slim necessarily, but that's kind of cool. You say, and I figured out today that these Kasumi 9-inch Pinko straight ED worms fit an 11-aught worm hook and look like the size you're supposed to use because the skin hook bump aligns perfectly. I don't know how they expect you to use a jig with these. Do you know of any big hook jigs that are good? Um, you know, big hook jigs. Not any that have bigger than like a 5-aught or a 6-aught hook in them. So no, dude. I mean that's really out there. Um, you know, are there any jigs that are made with like an 8-aught hook in them? I don't know that. I haven't seen them. Just for perspective, this is an 8-aught hook. So can you imagine using an 11-aught hook on a jig? It would be ridiculous. Like I don't know if anybody makes them. It's kind of crazy. An 11-aught worm hook. Why do you even have 11-aught worm hooks, man? Well, what do you throw the Depths Kinko worm? Their 13-inch worm, or I mean, why do you have worms that big? Why do you have hooks that big? Because it seems a little bit crazy to me. Daniel says maybe in a saltwater jig. That's a reasonable suspicion, because a lot of saltwater, um, ocean species of fish are big. Tuna, says Lord Vader. What's up, Lord Vader? How you doing tonight? Yeah, that's a good idea. Maybe get out of the freshwater game and go look for saltwater jigs. Um, but you're specifically looking for a traditional bass jig just with a gigantic hook on it. So, dude, I don't know. My guess is that bump on the back of the worm is meant for Texas rigging on a worm hook like the one that you used. But if you're threading the thing on a jig, you're just going to have a ton of tail hanging off the back end. You're still going to use a traditional jig with something in the ballpark of a 5-aught hook and then just have a really long trailer. So I don't know if you ought to trim down the worm and use it 2 times as a trailer, a 9-inch Pinko straight tail worm. I don't know. Really don't know enough about that. You said, yeah, I use the 11-aught for the 9-inch Sluggo and the Kinko worm as well, and for a man's jelly worm. Okay, so you throw a lot of big worms then. 11-aught hook sounds wild to me. I mean, I know that they make like the Owner Beast in a 10-aught and even a 12-aught, but in some situations it makes sense to me. Like you would need the 12-aught Beast hook for this bait right here. This is the Optimum Papa Boom Boom. So they make the Boom Boom swim bait, which is a 6-inch bait. This Papa Boom Boom, I can't remember if it's 8 or 10 inches. I guess this is just 8 inches, but they recommend using a 12-aught owner beast hook or larger, they say. Manufacturers vary. So, yeah, you would definitely need a giant hook to go with this thing. And I don't even really know why I have this bait. You know, this is over 3 ounces of just soft plastic. And I think a 12-aught owner beast is like what, an ounce in weight on top of that. So this is a hunk of plastic right here, no doubt. It's good looking though, for sure. In fact, I think it might even be it's softer, like it's made from a different material of plastic than the original Boom Boom. And just going off of feel, I like that. Um, because the Boom Boom is a hand poured bait that that is not quite as soft, right? This is a speed sensitive bait. I don't know if you just noticed with that Papa Boom Boom, but it's quite a bit softer than this guy is here, which is interesting to me because it makes me wonder if it has the same action. You know, this is one of those baits that was designed after that old Bass Pro Shops XPS swim bait, where it's got just that right amount of tail kick on like a medium speed retrieve, and it causes the head to do that unique shimmy that now in the last couple of years it seems like that is the action that all of these companies are going after. So yeah, the Boom Boom swim bait is a good one, but historically I've enjoyed the Baby Boom Boom perhaps the most out of the entire lineup. And it fits awesome on just like a 4-aught owner beast hook. Really cool, underrated little swim bait here that not that many people talk about. And this essentially you get the same action out of that you do with the 6 inch. So it's awesome on a medium speed retrieve, and you get that same wiggling action as you retrieve the bait. So underrated, not the most durable bait, but I think you get 3 in a pack and they're like $10 versus 2 in a pack for 10 or $12 for the regular size. And they're good baits, no doubt. Matt says you can't trim. It's a hollow floating worm. Got it. Okay. Only 6 inches of the bait is solid. And the rest is hollow. What do you mean only 6 inches of the 9 is solid? So 3 inches is hollow, or are you talking about the Kinko? If you've got 6 inches of solid plastic, you could trim that down a little bit, maybe. Not to use as two separate trailers, but maybe you don't want that much worm trailing behind a jig. So I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Maybe you trim it down so that it's, a 6 inch worm instead of a 9 inch worm. So then really you're just wasting 3 inches. You could use it as a drop shot um, or a Ned rig bait potentially. But then the other 6 inches, where you get 3 inches of solid, 3 inches of hollow, could end up being a good trailer on a jig for sure. You see, I guess you could trim it. It's just going to be shorter. They're not cheap. You only get 3 in a pack. Got it. Okay. 4 inches of bait is solid. 5 inches is hollow. Just measured it. All right. So yeah, then maybe don't trim it down, dude. Unless you're gonna trim it by an inch. You said, and Daniel, I did find some big hooks. Uh, just of a heavy weight. Oh, just too heavy of a weight, and no way of putting a skirt on them. See, that's what I was thinking. You know, you could find a big hook but it's going to come on a heavy jig head, and you're probably not going to get a collar. So you're not going to find a traditional bass jig with a gigantic hook in it. So yeah, that's really the problem there. I wonder if there's a market for that. It seems like there must not be if those don't really exist. And my guess is that most people aren't using super big straight tail worms, curly worms on the back of jigs so much as they are Texas rigging them or throwing them on Magnum shaky heads, things like that. Um, so yeah, I guess it's just a little bit too niche of a market and probably too expensive to make that people aren't really doing it. But imagine if there was a jig that had like a half ounce weight on it and an 8 or 10 aught hook. That could be pretty cool. Matt says, I think there's only one that I know of, Pico Jigs, which I think has a 7 aught hook or bigger, but that it's pretty heavy and not good for shallow water unless it's a tin head. Yeah, see that's the thing is most jigs or things like that are meant for ledge fishing, for deep water fishing in general. So you don't get the opportunity to fish them from the bank or fish them in shallow water. It just doesn't really cross over very well. So you're best off using like a Magnum shaky head instead of a skirt. And you might even be able to put a skirt on certain shaky heads, right? Depending on the type of bait keeper there is, because I've done that with some baits for sure. I've taken, for example, these these micro finesse jigs. These are the Z-Man micro finesse shrooms jigs. These come two to a pack for $5. Not a bad deal. But the jig heads, the finesse shrooms jigs, come five to a pack for $4 or $5. So you pay like $1 per jig head, and it's the same jig head just in a wider variety of weights. These jigs only come in a 1/8 and a 3/16, I think. And so I've made my own jigs because one, sometimes these fall apart. These just have a rubber collar on them and they will dry out eventually, just like most jig skirts, right? And so then they'll break, and then what you're left with is just a bare jig head. And so I will put a new skirt on these, but that I've just taken the standard Z-Man Finesse Shrooms jig heads. Like, here you go. I'll make one right now. I don't care. So here's the Z-Man banded skirts. This is the pond scum color. So I like the finesse shrooms jig head, or the finesse shrooms micro jig in this color, and we'll just make our own right now because you can buy these skirts 5 to a pack for $3. So you do the math, 60 cents a pop on these, $1 roughly, maybe a little less. So when you make these, you're spending $1.50 per versus $2.50 per to buy them in a pack. And the only thing is you're not getting a collar, but you do get a little bit more versatility in being able to customize the size of the jig head, the weight that you're dealing with. So to me, that's a big plus. So what side goes up here? I don't even know if I have a pair of scissors down here. Let me look in 1 second. So, like I said, this jig head does not have a collar. So literally what I will do sometimes is throw some super glue up there and then push this skirt up on there. But when you think about it, it's not all that important because eventually what you're going to do is thread on a bait, and that bait is going to keep that skirt up. So, especially if the hook itself has a bait keeper, like the Finesse Rooms does, and voila, you can make your own jigs. And so, if you find a jig head that you like well enough, even if it's a round ball or a football head or what have you, and you can't find the jig that you want, then of course you can make your own. And that might be your best bet, Matt. Matt says that's what I did. I used the 11-aught owner hook and put a 3/8 ounce football head um, and put it on the hook. Now I got a wobble head with an 11-aught hook. Yep, that makes sense. So just use something like the Freedom Tackle wobble heads, something like that, where then you can swap out the hook for anything you want. That's a good idea. But then you're still using a worm hook. You're still, theoretically Texas rigging the bait. So not exactly the same type of presentation, but yep, we're kind of thinking along the same lines for sure. Cool. All right, dudes, it's 11:30. I've been on for an hour, and I'm gonna get out of here. Um, just because I need sleep for tomorrow, and really the rest of the week. My work week starts tomorrow morning. So I got on here really to just show you guys that Fire Craw Flat Force from Evergreen, and I'm pumped that came in the mail. And that's about it. So yeah, Dina says, or find a heavy one that you can put a skirt on and just shave some lead off. Well, there's an idea. I didn't think about that. But yeah, keep an eye out for a jig head that you want, Matt. I mean, you can kind of create your own collar with super glue or anything else like that. I use like a UV resin um, and a little UV light to do things like that all the time that I have from fly tying, to use instead of head cement. I will use a UV resin that cures immediately under light. And so you can do that on things like this on, the shank of a hook. You could put some of that on, flash the light on it, and it will create a bump on there that will be hard and will stay in place. So then you could use that as a collar to bring his skirt over that will keep that in place. And you could then effectively use whatever jig head you find is most appropriate or that you like best, then you could make your own jig. So something to keep in mind. But yeah, no problem, dude. Okay, guys, I'm gonna down the rest of this beer and dip out of here. Thank you guys for hanging out. I know it was just a short one, a late night one. Matt, thanks for calling Daniel. Daniel, thanks for hopping on and for turning this from a 10-minute video into an hour and 5-minute video. Not that I care about the length, but I just care about the camaraderie, the conversation. To those other couple of you guys hanging out in here, Lord Vader or anybody else, thank you guys for watching, even though you didn't really contribute very much in the chat. I don't mind it, but I always do encourage you guys to be more active in the chat. So, guys, cheers. Have yourselves a great Sunday. Lord Vader, I knew you were watching, dude. I know you're watching. Not trying to give you too hard of a time, but it's always fun when people are more active in the chat than when they're not, right? And as we talked about last night, this is not one of those live streams where the chat is flying and I can't keep up with the comments. All right, I'm getting out of here before I burp like 8 more times. But guys, love you guys very much. Enjoy your Sunday. See you in the next one. Peace.